Um, so the American founding, why did we come over?
Basically, three or four reasons, and they're historic. By historic, I mean it's been the way that human beings have been since we started moving around. Dreams slash hope. They're similar, but they're not the same. Fears, opportunities slash good and bad, good and evil, um, and boredom.
Hmm.
That's the reason we came over, our forefathers.
That is interesting. That you mentioned like boredom because I've noticed there's definitely like this calling that we all want to experience like the Wild West, you know? And it kind of started like as the new territories, you know, like what's the new world? And then as we explored, we kept moving further and further west. And there's still that, I think, draw to a lot of people wanting to be in the country style, you know, like kind of something wild and unknown. And I think that also comes with a lot of like opportunity where it's like the fear of the unknown is also the place where there's greatest opportunity. Um, but yeah, like what do you think is like what do you think was the main draw of those four things? Do you think was it opportunity or do you think it was like just no?
I think it's a balancing point between. Um, Let me back up.
Okay.
Are you asking in numbers of people that came over, or what was inside the mind and hearts of those that did?
That's a good question. I maybe a little of both. I feel like the heart and soul is kind of the main question because I feel like that's something very unique about us as a nation is we all kind of have that hope and fire for something special.
Yes and no.
Okay.
And here's the reason. Because, all right, your background, your lineage is what, if you're willing to say?
Irish and German primarily and Russian.
Okay. All right. So mine is, from what I understand, I haven't dug into it that much. I'm more interested in my life. In other words, what's going on now. I love history. I think you know that.
Hmm.
But I don't have to know that my great 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 uncle was a Scottish lord and had a kilt, no underwear. That just no, I'm not interested in
Hmm.
that. And the reason I bring that up is by God's grace, I've been over to Scotland a few times, enjoyed it. It was for work, and they said, "Well, you're a bit different." I said, "How am I a bit different?" I thought it was because of my height. There's not that many tall Scots. And they said, "You're not looking for a kilt." I said, "No, I'm not. You're not that tall." And they'd laugh and they'd say, "No." But everybody that comes, I can't do the lingo that long. They would say, almost everybody comes over here says, "Oh, I've got family from Scotland, and I need to find, my plaid and get going, my
Mm.
tartan." So no, I never wondered if I had any Scottish blood in me or not. I figured I'm fiery enough as it is.
Hmm.
But the heart and soul, you've got people that are from Slovenia, you got people from Lithuania, you got people from Macedonia, you got people from Israel, you got people from just you name it.
Hmm.
And I'm talking about hundreds of years ago. Um, why didn't all of them come over?
Mm.
Why didn't every Slovenian come over? Why didn't every German come over? Why didn't every Irishman come on over? But why didn't every Spaniard come over? The thing is, it's an individual thing.
Mm.
Human nature is, boy, I sure would like to have a new truck. Well, you and 26 million other people, but it's the ones that get off their rump and go to work and do whatever it takes and they save and they do without that extra steak. They eat bologna a couple of days a week. Why? Because they have a plan. They've got a dream,
Hmm.
they've got a plan, and they're going to own a new truck. All right. That's human nature. That's not American nature.
Mm.
All right. There were plenty of Plains Indians that were quite content just to stay around, the encampment. But there were others who are like, I wonder what's over that mesa. I wonder what's down in that gully, that canyon, that arroyo. I wonder what is. See, it's the human nature, and it's not shared by every human being. And that's a good thing. Why? Because I am very thankful for everybody that thinks the urban world is the place to be.
Mm.
That keeps them out of my country,
Ah.
i.e., my Hickville. You see what
Uh-huh.
I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
And they're the
Yeah.
same way. You guys stay over in flyover land. Stay in Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, Oklahoma. Don't come to New York unless it's as a tourist to spend money and then go back. Why? We share the same passions and dreams, hopes, fears on a base level. Okay. But we voice them, we visualize them,
Mhm.
and we make them real in the unique ways that we grow up. Country kids do it that way. Small town kids do it this way. Big town kids do it this way. And that's okay. Why did we come over? Fears, dreams, hopes, opportunity, good and evil, and boredom. Hey, Bob, what are you doing next Thursday? I don't know. There's a bunch of them going over to America. Yeah, I'm kind of bored around here. They
Yep.
don't really have a dream. They just, I could use a change of scenery. And all of that came into play.
Yeah. I
Does
guess
that make sense?
that does make sense. Yeah, like I think there's a lot that every person that came over saw. Like maybe like you're saying, some people were hoping for more opportunity, maybe some were bored. Um, Maybe the reason why America's been set different and kind of like the American dream has been a thing is that um it's kind of like a new starting ground. So
Now
you
that,
kind of had,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
like they had to make a very big commitment to leave because they couldn't really go back. So it's like once it was decided, they were like, well, this is it. You kind of have to go in all in.
And see, you brought up something that's completely different. And that is uniquely American. You asked, why did people come over here? The same reason they would leave Stuttgart and go to Munich. The same reason they'd go from London to Wales or whatever. Business, girls, whatever. But why do people continue to this day, even as we as a nation are spiraling down to oblivion if we don't do something? I mean,
Hmm.
major.
Hmm.
Why? Because that whispered the American dream. What does that mean? The land of opportunity. What does that mean? Good, bad, or indifferent, survive or not, win or lose. I have an opportunity to try.
Yeah.
That's what's different in the minds of people around the world about this contiguous 48 states.
Hmm.
And yes, Alaska. I don't think too many people even think about Hawaii that way. You're either rich enough to live there or whatever. But that is something that is uniquely American.
Yeah, it's like I think the founding fathers exemplified that a lot in their early writings and how they wanted to give a place for people to, essentially use their freedom well. Um, and they understood like throughout history there were so many tries, failures, people or like in I guess like leaders in those ages that tried but couldn't maybe keep it up. And they're like, well, we have a fresh start now. We might as well try our best to set up a good one. And they did a pretty bang up job, but
They
they
did a phenomenal job.
unfortunately all the people that don't like that freedom have been corrupting it from the inside out. So,
Well, there's a few things. I'm not sharp enough to have come up with 3 points real fast because we are doing this live, so I didn't have a lot of prep time.
oh, for sure.
Um, But the few things that are there is that there are people that don't like other people to have freedom.
Mhm.
To me, that is a bizarre concept, but it is historically common. There are people that they're not happy if they're not controlling other human beings, right? Those rise up everywhere. But just like when that lady asked Ben Franklin, "So what do we have, sir?" And he thought about it a second. He goes, "A republic, if you can keep it, man." What did he mean? He was wise enough, had enough years, enough experience that he knew that there were people, they didn't want liberty. They wanted freedom. Totally different thing. All right. Liberty is freedom with responsibility. Freedom, the way that most people see it, is, I can go to dinner where I want. I can buy whatever clothes I want. That's freedom? No, that is a narrowing confine. All right.
Mhm.
Because the only way that you have the freedom to do that is by exercising your liberty. In other words, taking responsibility for the freedom that you have, just like in Texas. I'm sure that nobody does it anymore, but this is a real thing. Used to be when you graduated high school in Texas, more so boys than girls, but definitely when you graduated high school, when you turned 18, mama cooked you the biggest dinner you've ever seen. All of your favorites from Christmas, Thanksgiving, your birthday, June 2nd, whatever. And you got to eat all you wanted until you were busted. And she'd say, "Baby, you want any more?" "No, Mom, I couldn't eat another bite." She'd pick up that plate and she goes, "Are you sure?" "Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, but I am about to bust." "Okay." And she'd break the plate on a chair.
Mm.
And then she'd hand you a piece of it. Of course, you knew it was coming. I mean, it was a common thing. But the basics of that is from this moment forward, you're welcome to visit. That's why you had a piece of the plate left. You can visit, but you don't live here no more. Get
Mm.
off your butt and go get a job. Of course, by that time, in those days in Texas, you'd had a job since you were a little kid and you knew it was coming, so you were ready to go. I remember seeing a Marty Stouffer program one time. You remember that? Wild America.
Doesn't sound
Okay.
familiar.
Yeah, well, you're a kid. You don't know things.
It's
On
true.
PBS 40 years ago, there was this guy named Marty Stouffer. I couldn't stand his voice. He was so, ooh, at least sound Southern, boy, you know? But one of the things that I love is he did this show called Wild America. Now, how contrived it was, I don't know. But I love the fact that you got to see down in the burrow, where the animals were having their babies and raising them and stuff. And you got to be up in the eagle's nest and all of that. And I remember this episode, and it showed the story of this mama beaver and the little babies and blah, 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 and building through the spring and the summer and all of that. And they were cute and little bitty, and then they got bigger and they were still cute. And then they were about the size of mama. All right. And they wintered that first winter with her. And he stuck cameras down there, and they didn't have those little bitty, uh, tiny cameras. So he had to, I don't know how he did it, but he did. And they wintered there. Come that next spring, they're pretty big. They're not that cute anymore, but they're still young. They're still little ones, if you will. But mama's like, "It's time for you to go." All right. I chewed enough trees and bark and all that kind of stuff. I'm done. Besides, I got to get ready for the next batch. And I remember the two females, they were like, "Yeah, we're ready to go. We're sick of you telling us what to do. Iron the clothes, pull the bark, put it on the barbecue, whatever." And boom, they were gone. That little male, you're like, "But mama, I'm your favorite." Mommy, you can't do this. And she tried everything in the world. And finally, she bit him, I mean, until he took off.
Wow.
He wanted freedom. He wanted the freedom to lay around, eat
Mm,
whatever she made, do whatever he wanted, help a little bit so he didn't feel too guilty, but he didn't want liberty.
mm,
He didn't want the responsibility for his next meal, his next damn whatever came in that world. So that's the difference. And that's why you had people, they were quite willing to come over, but they all congealed and conglomerated and stayed in the coastal urban areas. Why? I've come as far as I want to go. I got everything I want. I got everything I need. I don't need to see what's over those Blue Ridge Mountains. I don't need to see what I'm hearing about coming back from the Great Plains. I don't need to know what's beyond those Rockies. Okay. But there are others that were driven.
mhm.
What drove them? Dreams slash hope, fears. A lot of people went west simply because they didn't want to go to prison.
Yeah, that's also
Okay.
true. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, the cops in Baltimore were looking for him. So yeah, you're going to Kansas? Sounds great to me. Let's go. Um, so yeah, that's what brought us over. And as far as what is it that drives us to love the pioneer? I've mentioned to you in private conversation that I've been around men that, you know, I was born 100 years too late.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you want to get your lazy butt out of bed and go to work when it's 75 degrees. You would not make it through a winter in the Rockies. So you were born at the right time, son. I guarantee you. Um, the romance. It's just like marriage. It's just like love. It's just like being an adult. I can't wait to get out of here, and not have my parents tell me what to do. And then at the age of 27, 28, 32, you're like, can I come back home? Adulting is rough. Yeah, no kidding, kid. So we romance about things.
Mm,
The difference between that and I'm not talking about the caravans of illegal, you know, gang members and stuff like that. That's a whole other world.
yeah, that doesn't count.
But back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, when Cuban families were putting together anything they could, 55-gallon drums, uh, inner tubes off of tires, and trying to make that trek across that hellish water so that they could land in Florida, even if they wound up detained, anything was better than where they were.
Mm.
That's the American dream. And that's more than romance. That's ganas. That's that
Yeah.
bone deep desire that I talked about last time.
Hmm.
So that's the best I got on why we came over and, all of that. What's the next one?
So I was I don't know if you've heard this, probably you've come across this, the facts tell, stories sell motto like in business. And I was wondering, like, it seems like the things that hit us the most are usually stories. Like we read a book, we watch a movie, and we remember like the character in a timeline, pretty much.
Okay.
And I was wondering if maybe the reason why a lot of people kind of forget those really important things in our life, like the actual things that matter the most, like our faith, our families, like truth, um, kind of like the whole conservative Christian mindset. A lot of people just reject it. And I just was wondering if you think it's because we can't tell good stories, or if we can, we just don't tell enough of them. This was just me thinking, and I didn't have anything to go off of this. This was just a thought. So,
No, that's fine.
yeah.
Facts tell, stories sell. Truth. All right. That's that first part. What was the next part?
Do you think that if we told better stories, people would be more conservative?
No.
Okay.
If we, if we, see, that's the hang up right there. We, like we're the power behind it and the reason it fails.
Mm,
What happens a lot of times, and you're absolutely right, and I'm a storyteller, I'm an author, and
hmm
you've read some of my stuff. Any of it memorable?
hmm
Why?
Um, I think it's because it uncovers the truth
Okay.
in a way that you didn't expect coming, if that makes sense.
All right. It
So,
does. And there it
okay.
is. But what happens is so many times, now keep in mind what you're longing for has happened, is happening, and will happen.
Mm,
It's not just not happening on a nationwide scale where you can say, oh, this is what's happening. All right. In the 1950s, the early 1950s, um, there was a romanization. I don't know the word for it. Just made one up. That'll fit. Um, they romanticized, um, rebel without a cause,
hmm
young people. It was post World War II, and nobody wanted to be told what to do anymore because we did everything we were supposed to do. We did what we were asked to do. We did what we were told to do, i.e., the greatest generation. And when they came back from the war after having had to do things that they couldn't have even fathomed before and did not want to think about again and didn't want their children to live through at all or experience, there became a shift or there started a shift in what young people were required and expected to do, right? Understandable, again, human nature. But what happened was those teenagers that came out of, World War II got bored.
mm
They didn't have to work on a farm or a ranch. They didn't have to help in a blacksmith shop or a mechanic shop or a body shop or a bakery or whatever. Uh, and they had this freedom, see, freedom without liberty. They weren't responsible for much of anything. And it was love on the parents' part. Okay. Survive the war, want you to have a better life. I'm making a great living working for GM, Ford, whatever, da da da. You want a car? Back in the old days, you want a car? Get off your butt and go get a job. I, I grew up that way. But anyway, uh, you want a car? Here's a used 53 Chevy. All right. So they didn't have to bust their tail for that car. Now, did a lot of them? Yes, they worked at A&W, they worked at a lumber yard or whatever. I'm just saying the general populace, there was a loosening of that belt of responsibility for young people. And they loved it, but then they got bored and they didn't know what to do. We're talking about storytelling. Why aren't we telling stories strong enough to bring them back? Because as a nation, we have become consumers instead of producers. And in that consuming, we now have, I just looked at it today for part of my work. There is so much going on with AI generated videos, cloning, things of that nature. You can make a clone of yourself. I can make a clone of myself. That is actually almost indiscernible from me sitting right here. And one of the things that was spoken about in one of these companies, their ad, now you can be in hundreds of meetings everywhere and be exactly where you are and they will talk like you. They will look like you. They will make decisions like you because they are based on you, but you don't have to be in that meeting. Had you not
Whoa.
seen that one?
No. First time hearing about
Oh,
it.
oh yeah. I don't remember if it was next gen or what it was. I looked at about nine different ones and I thought, great. So now we're going to be making financial decisions in the millions or billions of dollars worth without even knowing if this one is a person or a clone talking to this one as a person or a clone, and the clones are making the decisions.
Sounds a little scary.
How do you tell a story to people that are inundated with that kind of freedom
Mm,
that makes them want to hunger for liberty, where they are responsible?
I guess that's the real question.
The same way that Jesus did. All right. He told over 50 parables that we have written down. Okay. In Mark chapter 4, it actually says that, and he never spoke to them without talking in parables. Well, now, why did he do that? I'm asking you.
Well, I mean, I guess to use his own words, he said that some people need to have parables to understand. Um, and the reason being is probably because people can then put themselves in the position of that character, maybe, and then understand the truth through that character. At least that's the way I think about him usually when I'm hearing a parable or story. I usually like think of myself as a character, but I don't know if that's how everyone does it. Um,
And that's another reason he used parables. Everybody was coming at it from different angles: male, female, young, middle, old, wealthy, making it, poor, beggar. You see
mhm.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it would take each of us different amounts of time and living and experience, but we all come to the same conclusion if we're hungry for truth. Aha, that's the point. Hungry for truth. One of the reasons he spoke in parables, i.e., stories, was that he spoke truths that if he just said them, people could dismiss them just that quick and that'd be the end of it. All right. But like when the Pharisee asked him, well, who's my neighbor? And the Bible says the Pharisee was wanting to justify himself.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, how, how much do I have to do? How far do I have to go before God says, you're okay with me? And Jesus says, fair question. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength. Oh, and love your neighbor as yourself. Okay. So who's my neighbor? The Pharisee said. In other words, can I just go down the street to Bob? I like Bob, same socioeconomic background. We belong to the same golf club, blah, blah, blah. And Jesus said, all right, if he were to just say no, that would have ended everything for everybody. That would have been the end of it. But
Mm,
2,000 years later, we're still talking about there was a certain Jew. Now, why did he say that? Well, because he wanted to set the stage for who do you think your neighbor is? I'll tell you who your neighbor is. People you have no clue that you would be friendly with if you're going to please God. And he goes on this trip and he gets robbed, beaten, stripped, left half dead. Along comes two of the most prominent Jews you could find, right? A priest and a Levite. And both of them said, oh, no, no, I'm going to go over on this side of the road and keep on with my business. That ain't none of my business there. And then he had to go and do it. Along comes a Samaritan, and he has compassion on him. He binds up his wounds. He puts him on his own beast of burden. He takes him into the next village. He, pays for his room, gives extra money. whatever he needs for food, drink, medicine, and his stay. Here it is. And if he owes any more, you take care of him until he's good to go. You know, I come back and forth all the time on business. When I come back by, I'll pay anything that's owed on that. And then he turns to the Pharisee and he goes, so who was a neighbor to this man? Do you remember how the Pharisee answered him?
Not the exact words, no.
And the exact words are important. This intelligent, ancient, college educated, because you couldn't be a Pharisee unless you'd gone to the right schools and had the right level of education. All right. So it's a fair comparison to say that he was college educated, ancient style. Was so dumb. He wasn't dumb. He just did not want to give up on it. He goes, I suppose, when Jesus said, who was his neighbor? I suppose the one that had compassion on him. You suppose? You suppose? Come on, give it up. Give it up now. Why did he speak in parables? Because he told truths that were so universally needed, so universally powerful, and sometimes so universally egregious to wherever people are at certain times.
Mm,
I've been that Pharisee many times. All
same.
right.
Yeah.
This person's hurting. I don't give a shit. I do not care. Piss on them. Well, now that's not very Christian. Shut up. Don't care about you right now either. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the power of his story has still rescued me, saved me by convicting me
Mm.
over and over again over the years. Whereas if he'd have just said, point six, subparagraph A, you must be nice to people you don't like. And hell with that. I'm not, no, I don't want to sign up. But I can't get his story out of my head.
Mhm.
Back to the original thing that I said, while it's not a national movement per se, where everybody can point and say, oh, we're telling stories powerful enough to make people want to be conservative Republican Christians on a day to day basis, in coffee shops, on football fields, in factories, refineries. It's happened.
Mm.
And that's the way it's always happened.
Yeah.
It's always been the passion that I have, reaching out to the yearning and longing that you have, me and you being used just as
I follow.
cases of the moment,
Yeah.
not overall. And that's the way that he intended it. You know, everybody wants, campus crusades for Christ back in the 80s. You don't remember, you're a kid, you don't know things. Um, it was very popular. And I was of that age. And I actually thought to myself, I'm missing out because I'm not going to a campus crusade for Christ event. No, I wasn't missing anything because they moved masses and then they moved on and the masses were left going, what do I do now? And there was nothing to fill the void too many times.
Oh.
Not always, but too many times.
Mhm.
But when I tell my stories of why are you the way you are? Because God rescued my worthless hide. He saved me in spite of myself and has rescued me again and again and again after he saved me. Because I'm not the brightest one he's got.
Me neither.
And he's given me the grace to love people and reach out to people that before it would not have been nice if I'd have run into
Mhm.
them.
Mm.
Are you talking about color? No, no, I'm talking about people that did things to me in my life. So where did I learn to do that? From a master that lived his stories and told his stories and left his stories to make a difference.
Mm.
And there's people doing that today.
Yeah. Mm.
Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. I think that's honestly like I think there's always that tendency to like, let's fix it all right now, because boy, are
Sure.
things messed up. But then it seems like when God plays, he always plays the long game. And in the short term, things seem pretty wild and crazy. But he always has a plan, and he has all of his disciples following him and doing things that may not seem like a lot at the moment, but then in the long term, it becomes something. Actually, last Christmas, I was thinking about kind of like hidden life a little bit, like people that have great lives, but they don't really publicize it. And I was thinking about it because I was like, a lot of times what seems like a small action actually becomes a massive one later. So a lot of these people that live secret lives are actually doing incredible things. They just don't realize it. And they're a great blessing to many people. And then I realized, well, it's interesting. It's like, well, Jesus was born in a manger with some animals around him, which at the time didn't seem very good. And I bet St. Joseph felt really bad. And then now that's like the most comforting image we have for Christmas. It's like
Yeah.
even though it's not fancy or it was on a billboard anywhere or like Christ is coming in, like prepare the way. It was like, well, he's here in the manger and there's some angels talking to shepherds and hey, come see Jesus. And then look what it became, it's like we have, yeah.
No, go ahead and finish out. You're doing awesome.
Oh, just like now you have an image that every time you see it, you think that Jesus is here and he does love you, and that there's something about that image that will always kind of bring you a sense of peace, I think.
When I was younger, I wanted the world to change and I wanted to be a part of it. I thought I was going to be, and I wasn't alone. There's millions of us. Some of us were hippies, some of us were cowboys, whatever, but we were young. And so full of promise and piss and vinegar. All right. And I had a very wise older man one time because I was like, this isn't right. We need to do this. And I'm going to do that. Blah, blah, blah. And he goes, well, okay. Can I ask you something? I said, yeah. Kind of like I was in a hurry and he better hurry up too. And he said, do you think God knows how to get all that done? Oh, well, yes, yes, of course. He's God and he's perfect. And he said, are you sure? I said, yeah, he's God. How dare you even think that? He goes, you're thinking it. And I was like, what?
That's funny.
And he goes, if you were running the Jesus is King campaign where the angels have gone to a bunch of stinky old shepherds out in the middle of nowhere, would they have not have gone to Jerusalem or would they not have waited until 1978? That's when this was. But anyway, we had television, we had radio, we had microphones, we had cameras, we had worldwide, CBS Wide World of Sports. Why didn't he wait till now?
Uh-huh.
In the fullness of time, the Bible says, at just the right moment, Jesus came. It must have been because 2,000 years later, he's still saving souls like mine. But it sure didn't seem like it to me when I was young.
Mm.
Now, this country, what we're going through, it could be hellish mess in 6 days. All right. I don't think it is going to be on the 5th, but beginning on the 6th, it could be absolute hell for a while or for the rest of my life. I don't know. Aren't you worried? No, no. This has happened over and over and over and over in history so many times. But one thing is constant and true. The Lord put all the parts of the body just as he saw fit. Now, we mentioned this, I did last time, that most people think that means, Yeah, so we have preachers, we have elders, we have deacons, we have song leaders, we have youth ministers. No, no, that's not what he was talking about. That's not at all what he was talking about. He was talking about the personalities and the experiences and the age levels and everything else. They're just right. They were just right in AD 33, AD 69, AD 110, and they're just right now. I was supposed to be born when I was born. I was supposed to go through what I went through. Now, some of it I didn't have to go through, but I was so stupid and mean that I did. And he was like, okay, if that's the way you want to get this lesson, okay, that's not how I would have done it for you, but you're still going to get the lesson. Why? So that at just this moment, I could be what he needs me to be for whatever it is he has for me to do next. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, phenomenal human being. You ever heard of him?
Hmm.
I don't think he would have picked to be born when he was born, go through what he went through so that he could die in a Nazi concentration camp right before they liberated everybody. But he was born at just the right time and he learned just the right lessons. And he used his liberty, the responsibility that goes with the freedom. But he was in a concentration camp. Yes, he was. But they didn't imprison his mind and they didn't imprison his heart. God still owned them both and he was a free man. And that's what terrified him. And I just pray that regardless of what my portion in this life is, that like the young girl and that lady of the Covenanters that I told you about last time, Dietrich Bonhoeffer or whoever, that I live as a free man and use my liberty to bring others to the King. That's where the power is. That's the stories that are worth telling.
Hmm.
And it's not so much, you know, the Southern drawl or the Eastern, preciseness. It's not the syntax or how many commas you use. Although those can save you a lot of trouble because run-on sentences can get really nasty in how they're understood if you don't have the punctuation right. Do we need to be telling better stories? We need to be living the best stories, and it may be for future generations to tell.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that bringing back up the Covenanters, I think
Go.
at least reminds me a lot of like a lot of those stories that like you hear once and then you still keep remembering them because it was such a powerful testimony. Um,
Yeah, you'd never heard of the Covenanters in your entire life, had you?
no, yeah, that was the first time.
But you'll never forget that little girl.
Never. Yeah, I know. Like, yeah, like that's incredible. Like, yeah, and how many years later this is from when that happened, she's still helping people think about what's right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just like when Martin Luther, by the way, did you know that yesterday was the anniversary of that when he nailed his theses up? Do you know how many years ago that was?
Mm.
You're a kid, you don't know things.
I know it's at least 500, but I don't know the exact date.
Yeah, I want to say it was 507 years ago, 57 or 1517, wasn't it?
Sounds right.
That's kind of irrelevant. It could have been 1512. But anyway, the point is, he had no thought when he penned them and when he nailed them. It never entered his mind to start a whole new religion because that's not what he wanted to do. He just wanted to get the one that he was a part of straight. But basically, there were no Protestants before 1517. He lived it, other people wrote it. You see what I'm saying?
Hmm. Yeah.
And it's just like Why was I looking at 9 different companies for AI for my work? Um, I'm getting older. Still look good, but I'm getting older, and I don't want to stay out in the refineries and everything 100 hours a week in the heat, cold, and everything else. I got nothing to prove. You know,
Yeah.
I've been in the snow and the sleet and the rain and the heat and everything else a lot, but I still want to serve. And so one of the ways that I'm looking at doing that is doing safety videos or whatever. And I want them slick. You know, I want them good. I want to make an impact. I want to be an influencer, I guess. But in that, in and of itself, I'll never do anything as powerful as what God gave me the grace to do. And that is to live the story of serving all of the thousands of people that I have had the honor of serving, almost 3 million collective man hours directly under my watch, my people,
Wow.
not one reportable injury.
Dang.
Anybody could write that story. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay? But living it, that's where the power is. And so we are an influencer society. Good, bad, or indifferent, we are. And the younger, the cuter, the whatever you are, the better chance you have of getting millions of views and hundreds of thousands of followers. But is that where your personal value comes from? Your personal worth? When you're 70 years old and you're looking back at it, you know, when I was 25 and firm and shapely and my hair was still there and everything else, I had 2 million followers. And what difference did you make in the world? I made a lot of money, but what difference did you make in the world long term? People dressed like me for about 4 months. What difference did you make? And I'm not talking about your kids or grandkids asking you. I'm talking about the 70-year-old looking back there,
Yeah.
and it will happen.
Hmm.
So, what will the 70-year-old me look back and say? I don't know that I'm going to be alive then. But if I am, I'm bound to determine every day that I live to live in such a way, to live a story that I can look back and say, it is all by God's grace because I screwed it up so bad so many times before and since, and I was still able to accomplish this. I can live with that.
Yeah.
What was
Hmm.
your next question?
Um, so I guess that was kind of a personal question for you, but as an author,
Go.
um, how do you usually like to start out with like, I guess narrating a story? Do you think of a character, a theme, an idea? This was just kind of a question I had. Like, I never
Oh,
read a book, and so I just was curious.
um, theme or plot, I think I read in your initial question you sent to me, about 30 minutes before we actually started this. Thank you for the prep time you gave me there, kid.
Yeah, no problem.
Um, yeah,
It'll take
anytime, right?
40 minutes next time, probably.
Well, do you want to know what the genesis of the doorway buck was?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Okay. One thing that I do, I almost always write in first person.
Okay.
Okay. Um, Louis L'Amour, the most prolific Western writer, and to me, the best overall. Um, Now, Lewis B. Patton did some phenomenal books, but he did some that were just, eh. But Louis L'Amour did a good job almost every time. But he always looked at it like this: the sun was hot, it was brassy, blah 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 blah. As the writer came in, No, to hell with that. As I topped out on the ridge, it looked pretty good down there. That's how I'd ride.
Mm-hmm.
All right. He did it from an observer's viewpoint. Uh, Riley's Luck and a couple of others are the only ones I can ever remember. Oh, uh, Sackett, about Tell Sackett. That one was first person right off the bat. Most of the others was from a distance. Okay. So there's different ways of seeing your story, is what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm.
I always see mine first person. What are these eyes seeing? What are these ears hearing? What is this smelling? And that's what this says from those senses coming in. But the genesis of the doorway buck was me being pissed,
Oh.
me being sick and tired of a bunch of trad archery churchites.
Mm.
All right. They turned it into a religion. Traditional archery is so phenomenal because it's so freeing. It really is. It's you, a stick, a string, and another stick. And the joy of watching that arrow arc wherever it's going to go, just the joy of the flight of the arrow. That's the whole reason I've done it for over 60 years. All right. Now, do you owe it to the animals that you're hunting and stuff to be as good as you can be and make as good a shot the first time as you can? Absolutely. Have the best in the world ever shanked a shot and hit an animal less than perfectly? You better believe. Do most of them admit it? Not so much. Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
So why do you, if you're hunting for your ego, you can never make a mistake. If you're hunting for the approval of the rest of them in the first church of traditional archery, you can't make a mistake.
Mm.
All right. That's bullshit. All right. I'm a freeborn man and I use my liberty to take responsibility for what I do and what I don't do, what I accomplish and what I don't do so good at accomplishing. I own it and I'm good with that. And there's several others that do too. But I was on a forum. This is before Facebook and LinkedIn and all that other stuff even existed. MySpace wasn't even around. And so we gathered together on these forums. And I only did it because I was like, heck, I thought I was the only guy around here that, shot a stick and a string, a longbow or a recurve. Come to find out there was a couple of hundred in my state, 500 or 600 in another state, blah, blah. Cool, let's go. But the more that I was around it, the more I was on the forums, everybody, you had a thread, you know, my Texas Boone and Crockett buck, uh, my Alabama little itty bitty because we can't grow them very big buck, and all that kind of stuff. And somebody from Alabama is going to throw a fit when they hear that. But the churchites, the elders of the church of traditional archery. Oh, you took a shot that was over 18.6 yards? That's unethical. Shut up. Just shut up. Oh, you did not make a perfect heart shot? Oh, that's not only unethical, that's inexcusable, that's unforgivable. That's shut up. Just shut up. And there was a young guy that came on and he was so excited and he had so many heroes that didn't need to be heroized that he didn't know that at the moment. And he went to a couple of clinics and he went to 3D shoots and he worked hard and he practiced hard and he was out on a hunt and life happened the way that it does sometimes. And he made a less than stellar shot. And those damn vultures, why did you even post this? Matter of fact, why did you even go hunting? You ought not be in the woods and blah, 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 blah. and I'd had all I was going to take.
Mm.
And I'd already private messaged several of them and said, look, shut up or come talk to me. And I thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell a story because they wouldn't jump on me the way they jumped on him.
Mm.
All right. Well, what are you, bulletproof? No, one, I just don't give a rat's. Two, 6'6" and used to be in pretty damn good shape. Three, I've been at it longer than most people. Four, are there people better than me? Sure. But I was in the top 100 in the United States for quite a few years in the real world. Now, did I go and win the world 3D shoot here? No, I didn't even compete. That bored me out of my mind. Indoor shooting, that's boring as hell. But you get me out on a 3D course with just about anybody in North America. Did I win every time? No. Was I in the top three or four? Yup. And we jockey positions. So and so would win this one, I'd win that one, somebody else would win the third one. That's just part of it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But I never stopped having fun. So I thought, I'm going to tell a story. Very first word. Now you start your thread. Okay. And I didn't even have a title for it. Didn't know what I was going to do yet. All I knew was the very first words out of anybody's mouth was going to be, was you aiming for his butt? Because that's where that guy hit. That's where that guy hit that deer. The deer heard a noise and spun around, and he, you know, kind of did this, jerked, and he hit it in the butt. He
Oops.
recovered it, but he did hit it in the butt. And before all the animal rights people get on, I don't care. Okay, go take an Uber. Go wax your Tesla. Whatever you got, I don't care. Um, Real life happens to most people. And as a matter of fact, I have the mentor in the book, a few chapters in, a couple, three chapters in, the young boy that made a less than stellar shot on his very first animal, tries to explain it. Tuck, I want to explain how that happened. He goes, hey, you don't have to explain anything to anybody. And I have him say this line, which thankfully somebody said to me when I was about 19 and feeling very bad about myself because I'd tried something and it didn't work and I was embarrassed and all of that. And people were making fun. I had him say, life happens to everybody, son, except liars and legends.
Mm.
All right. But the very first words in the whole thing were, was you aiming for his butt? And those are the first words in my book. Chapter one, first sentence. Right there it is. And then I developed the story from there. So initially I was mad at them for being such pricks and going to try to shame them a little bit or at least, try jumping on me like he did that kid. Let's see how that goes. And it grew a life of its own and it turned into 224 pages and 25 chapters, I guess, a lot more. What is the genesis for my stories or how do I go about it? Just like my short stories. Uh, Silent Night, Get to the Mad Guy, the play on words and stuff. Those were started because on those same forums, we had a lot of guys in country, i.e., Iraq, Afghanistan, whatever, and they couldn't be home and they were in the crap. And I thought, what can I do? I can use whatever gift God gave me to tell a story and hopefully at least give them a few minutes, a half hour, whatever, however long the story is, of escape from the horrors and the hell and the boredom that they were dealing with over there. and I wrote them live as I was thinking of them.
Hmm.
And I would have thousands of people on my thread, you know, but it may be one paragraph because I hadn't thought of any more and I had to go cook lunch or I had to go feed the dog or whatever. So I'd write that paragraph. In the meantime, before I got back, and of course, I've got a pen name, CM Sackett, my nom de plume that I utilize for all my artsy stuff. And I'm not joking. There'd be 20, 25. Oh, come on, Sackett. What happens next? You can't just leave it right there. Come on, dude. What happens next? They type that out and post
Hmm.
it.
That's
And for
funny.
me, that was some of the most fun. And then I would sit down, I think about it. Where am I going next with it? Well, let's go this way with it. And yeah, I had tens of thousands of people reading my stories live as I was writing them. And I wish that that kind of world still existed. It may. I don't know. I've turned into an old fart that went through the Facebook stage. I'm done with it. But now I'm on LinkedIn, and that's not really conducive to threads, where you start a story and people are like, oh, he's telling another story. Come on, guys, let's get in here and see what happens next. You see? So I don't know where to take that part of how I create and do it again. But that's it.
Hmm.
What was the next question?
Oh,
Or go ahead. I'm sorry. What
no,
were you going to
no.
say?
I just really like that process. I feel like some of the best stories come about from either seeing something like that boy um, getting smack talked, or you think about a situation, or you remember a story or something like that, and you just kind of go off of that. I feel like that's like the best starting point. Um, and that's actually kind of how Jordan Peterson does his talks. Actually, he gave an outline once of like how does he do his speaking on stage. And he said it takes about an hour and a half beforehand, and he writes down a question he's been thinking about for a while. And he just kind of gives himself a brief outline of where it could go, what he could think he connect with it. And then when he's on stage, he said, I'm actually thinking about everything that's coming out of my mouth as I'm saying it. So he said every speech he said is unique for that individual audience on that day, what's on his mind. And I think that's why they're so powerful, because he's honestly like just being up there like, hey, just listen to me think. And then at the end, let's talk about it and see what you think, and maybe we'll come to something good. And I feel like that's what you
Yeah.
did, and I really like that approach a lot. I was just curious what your way of doing it was.
Well, as I mentioned in private conversation one time, I almost flunked, literally almost flunked high school
Man.
because I refused to do an 8-page term paper.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Mrs. Ellis, yeah, Mrs. Ellis, I'll never forget her. She's gone home to Jesus a few years ago. I had the extreme honor and pleasure of being able to track her down after almost 40 years at that. Well, it was 40 years at that time, 58. Yeah, almost 40. And she'd never forgotten me. I'd sent her a copy of my book when I wrote it, more as a, yeah, I bet you don't believe this, do you? Because I thought, it was basketball, 69 Chevelles, and Edwin Argo. That was it. That was the only thing in the world. Screw right. I mean, that's for geeks. And she said, well, geek or not, young man, you either write it or you're not going to graduate. And I said, I don't care. Yeah, I wasn't one of the brightest. So I said, well, how about I do one on a Louis L'Amour Western? Because I was eating them up. That's part of, my becoming a man. I told you I left home when I was 13. I was homeless and all of that, wound up in the system. And I wanted to be a man. I wanted to be a good man, but I had no idea. And then somebody introduced me to Louis L'Amour and the Westerns. I was never that broad in the shoulders and narrow in the hips, but, their character, their integrity. And I said, well, how about I do one on the Louis L'Amour? Because I could do that in my sleep. And she goes, that dime novel trash? No, sir. You're going to do it on Robinson Crusoe or Treasure Island? I said, oh, man. I did it. I think I made a C, and that was just out of the goodness of her heart. So let me ask myself a question because you didn't know about this. So, how did somebody that hated writing turn into a prolific writer?
Yeah. How does that happen?
I didn't write for a lot of years.
Hmm.
Now, I we have gifts from God that I'll just say me. When I was young, I misused. All right, I was always quick-witted, too quick-witted. I was always phenomenal at instantly coming up with stuff, and I misused it. I mistreated people terribly. I got laughs at their expense. Um, it wasn't gutless; it was stupid. I didn't even realize. I just thought, boy, I'm really something because it doesn't matter who says what or who does what. I can come up with something that people laugh at their expense. So I misused it, but I didn't write. In my late 30s, some of the things that were going on in my life, my marriage, my family, had reached such a critical boiling point in my mind. And I didn't think I had any, and I didn't really. I didn't have anybody to talk to. And I thought I was going to go insane. Thought about, you know, putting a pistol under my chin a lot of times. And then I thought, you know what? The bitch ain't worth it. I'm just being honest. That's what came to my mind. I'm not going to kill myself. What am I going to do then? I'm not going to go insane. So I started writing things down. And I started writing these little stories and poems and stuff like that, almost like a girl would, dadgum journal or something. And then I wrote one time about an agony that I was going through that I didn't know I had words for. I have a hard time reading it now. And then when everything finally fell apart and I was gutted like a fish, I started writing because it was the only outlet I had. The only friend that I had was the me that I hoped to be again someday. I don't know how to explain it any better than that. So I would write, I wrote to the spouse that I hope to have in the future that I didn't have in the past, and blah, blah. And I'm not meaning this conversation to be a bad mouth of her. I told you before, I was no catch. I'd have shot my younger self. We put each other through a lot of hell for 16 years. All right. But I would write these like, so there you are, blah, blah, blah. And I would envision, this person that was, flawlessly good and da, da, da. And then I got to read them. I was like, ooh, that's good. That's good writing. You know,
Yeah.
um, that's how it came about. I was about 38, 39 years old before I started writing. And it was because I was in agony and didn't know what else to do. And so I was writing to this person that didn't exist yet. And then I started writing about other things. And then I didn't have a job. And I thought, what are you going to do? And I thought, well, I can't preach anymore because that life had ended. When you're a forgiving preacher with a beautiful, physically beautiful wife, and they're like, oh, no, stay. When you're a broken, shattered preacher, when the wife has left with the help of two men in the congregation you're at now, one in another congregation, and a few others, they fire you because nobody wants a divorced preacher. And I thought, what am I going to do for a living? What do you do? I preach. No, you don't preach. What do you do? Public speaking. Okay, now you do that. I'm public speaking. What else do you do? I wrote articles for the weekly bulletin a couple of times. Okay, you write. And then I did a skills assessment, in other words. When you can't use your skills where you were, write down the skills that actually exist as skills and then figure out a new home for them.
Hmm. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Either that or curl up in a ball and die. And I wasn't going to do that.
Yeah.
So I walked into a ad agency in Jackson, Tennessee, a pretty big ad agency, as a matter of fact. And I said, "You need me," because I'd taken a look at some of their work, their copy work. And he goes, "Excuse me?" I said, "Yeah, your copy stinks." I was shattered. I was broken. I didn't care. I was
Uh-huh.
just going to be honest. And he goes, "All right, smart ass. Well, I tell you what, I've got ebb tide boats. I've had them for 5.5 years. I love boats and I love the money that ebb tide brings in, but I'm out of ideas and I'm about to lose the account. You've got 2 hours to show me on this new website that I'm building for them that you've got the chops you need."
Mm.
I came back 40 minutes later. And I said, "Okay, take a look." And he goes, "You didn't take it very serious." I said, "You didn't take a look." He sat down and he read it and he goes, "Holy smokes, this is awesome." Still wouldn't hire me full time. I did two
Oh.
years of I did 2 years of consultant and freelance work for him because he didn't like me. But that's okay. I didn't like him much either. Um, but that launched me into my own company and doing marketing and stuff for companies like Cracker Barrel, Motorola, and others like that. So you never know what life's going to bring. But why did I start writing? Because I didn't want to put a gun underneath my chin.
Mm. Well, I feel like
Not
there's
glamorous, but
no.
honest.
Well, yeah, it's the best. Well, I feel like writing can do so much. Like I've heard a lot of different people say that like writing thoughts down is probably one of the best ways to understand where you're at, what you're actually thinking. And I mean, um I hope you don't think I'm too much of a sissy, but I do journal every night or most nights. And I just like to make it as kind of like a reflection on the day and then like usually I'll just start thinking about whatever's on my mind or if there's been a question kind of nagging me and it just kind of helps you think through things oh well. And I really like that approach you had of like your future self writing back to you. There's something about that like mindset of like being in that different perspective and you're just like wow, I could actually make really good decisions thinking in that time frame. Looking back now, I'm like, I should do that more often. I've been trying to do that more often, actually. I'm just like, what would I actually think if I was like 7 years old now of what I'm doing now? And I'm like, I probably would spend a lot less time doing these things and worrying about those other things and focus on better priorities. But
Well, the reason that I did what I did was I knew that where I was a dead end,
mm,
literally, literally.
yeah.
But God gave me enough, I don't know, chutzpah. I didn't have any ganas. I had no bone deep desire anymore. uh, but He gave me enough chutzpah to say, I'm not dying. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not dying.
Mm,
But I knew that the mind and heart that I had at the moment was not the one I needed to listen to. So I transported myself, I guess, mentally into, all right, let's say you run into a good woman. Keep in mind, this isn't about her being a bad woman. She made mistakes. I made mistakes, blah, 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 blah. But at that moment, what would you say to her? I don't know. Well, you better start thinking about it because you're going to run into her.
mm.
And when that thought hit my head, that's when I thought, you know what? The sun will come up tomorrow. um, Today sucks. The todays for several months sucked. Large portions of the todays of 5 years sucked. I battled the rage. I battled the desire, the bone deep desire. I had ganas for that, for vengeance, revenge, and blah blah blah. I've been wronged. which robbed me of, you okay?
Hmm.
All right. Which robbed me of the power to enjoy what I had right in front of me.
Hmm.
And then he finally gave me the grace to open my eyes a little bit. And oh, it's 5 years later, and I've got nice rigs, and I've got a great wife, and I've got this, and I've got that. I'm still mad that all that happened, but it's not going to own me anymore. And he set me free.
Oh.
People, they love to jump on each other. Well, you need to forgive. Shut the hell up. Shut the hell up. Go forgive your dad for what he did to you, because I listen to you bitch about it every time we get together. Well, that's different. Is it? The point is, the reason we want people to forgive other people is because we want to see it in action because we know we need it. And we don't see it in action very often.
Hmm.
I finally learned how to forgive. Since the last time we talked, I'm almost 65 years old, right? And I never in my life. Now, one reason is I used to, I wanted to know where everybody was at all times, what they were doing. Did God finally step in and kill so and so and for being so mean and screwing my wife and all of that, and it was eating me alive, and it was actually leading me down a path of fulfilling the boiling white hot rage and hatred I had of just making the drive and making it happen.
Hmm.
I had to quit looking. I had to quit knowing. I had to quit checking. So I did for a long time. Didn't think their names. Didn't wonder. I was too busy living. Thank God. I got a lot of neat stuff now
Hmm.
because I finally quit doing that and started living. But see, I talked to you too long. My cigar goes out. This is not
Oops.
good.
Oh.
I didn't start smoking until I was 40. That's how crazy she was driving me. Um,
Oh.
but at any rate, I finally reached a point, and it was through a crazy accident. I watched a movie. Don't tell anybody else, okay? But I love Hallmark movies. I'm a romantic,
Really?
okay?
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
shut up. Shut up. So, no, I do. I love, do I love every one of them? No. It said it, kind of makes me mad that they're just like Westerns.
Hmm.
All right. Louis L'Amour wrote over 120 Westerns. I've read every one of them. I've collected all the paperbacks and some of the hardbacks, and I've read some of them 25, 30 times. Really have. And I was going through another binge of it, oh, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago. And my wife goes, "Why do you do that?" I said, "These are good. These are real men. And this is blah, blah, blah." She goes, "Broad in the shoulders, narrow in the hips, never misses when he shoots. The girls always love him, and he loses a couple of fights, but wins in the end." That's a Louis L'Amour Western. I was like, "No, you don't. There's a shit." She's right. That's basically a Louis L'Amour Western. And so you watch all these rom coms, and you know, I know what the hunger of it is for me. I love what's pure and good and right, and I love romance. I got no problem admitting it. I'm a romantic, big time. The innocence of it, in this current dark, filthy world, at least the portrayal of people in their 30s and 40s, having an innocent contact and the innocent uh, chemistry and the light brush of the hand and the you know she drops her books or he spills coffee on her or whatever. Oh, I'm sorry, and oh, you got something here, and Well, all right, I quit. I see what you're doing over there, laughing at me. But and I don't even know why I started this thing. Why did I open myself up for that? Um, oh, I watched a movie that was one of them rom-coms, and it
Yeah.
was based in Scotland. Well, I've been in Scotland. I love Scotland. I wasn't thinking about the past when I watched the movie. One of the scenes in the movie takes place exactly in a spot where I've been many times. And I thought, well, that's cool. Look at there. They're in Glenrothy and blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden, and I'm not going to go into all the details. A couple of them are still alive. But there was a missionary in Scotland that was supported by the church where I was. And that's how I first got over to Scotland, was to go visit him. And then I traveled all over the nation, preaching and doing seminars and that kind of stuff. Come to find out, his biggest financial supporter was the darkest, cruelest, nastiest, oldest person that slept with my wife.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, all this crap comes flooding back. Seemingly innocent threads of life, blah, blah, blah. And they weave a tapestry. And every once in a while, you look back and you're like, oh, crap, I didn't know that was a picture that was going to come out of it.
Yeah.
All right. So that, watch an innocent movie, innocently watch it. Oh, this is neat, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, well, I wonder, I don't care anymore, but I wonder, is that guy still alive?
Mm.
Not the old man that did what he did with her. She had a daddy complex because of terrible things that happened to her when she was little. It didn't make me feel any better. You know, um, I was young and vivacious and good looking. Now I'm just old and good looking, not even vivacious anymore. But I understand it now. I didn't care to understand it then. But I thought, well, let's just find out if that missionary's still alive. He is. His precious wife that I absolutely love, she never was in good health, but always treated everybody that came to their home like they were family and fed them better than they deserved and better than they could afford.
Mm.
Things were expensive in Scotland a long time before they were expensive here. Um, and then that led to, well, I wonder, is that man still alive? His biggest supporter, that was also the oldest, dirtiest, nastiest, that slept with her, and never had the balls to admit it when I called him on it. And I thought, oh, what the heck? So I got online and I checked. He died in 2020, 4 years ago. And then there was another one there, supposed good friend of mine. Life happens that way. And I thought, well, let's just go ahead and find out. So I typed his name in. He died in May of this year.
Mm.
So I have joined the obituary looking club. And that makes me mad because that's for old people. But I at least didn't do it because I'm old,
Mm.
just out of curiosity, which brings me to that point of what triggers actions, thoughts, different things. A smell, a sound, a song, a sight, a person that looks even vaguely like someone from a major moment in your life. And all of a sudden, you're instantly transported back. By the way, I'm going to write a book, a safety book about that, because I'll guarantee you, I know of people that have been in pretty big accidents, hurt or not, that what happened was that somebody turned on a radio oldie station and it was playing a song that was playing when he and his
Oh,
wife were dating and blah 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 or whatever, and he wasn't thinking safely and dropped his wrench or whatever. Anyway, long story. I also, because I was in that mode, started tracking down people from college. I haven't thought about, haven't contacted, never will, but I've never been to any, what do you call them? I'm honest.
reunions?
I don't, reunion. There were 9 in my graduating class in high school. 2 of them were killed that night, graduation night, in the pickup wreck that I was supposed to be in.
Wow.
Um, they shut the school down 2 years later. So why the hell would I go to a reunion of those old farts?
Man.
And same thing with college, went to college, did that thing um, about as well as about half of the people that go to college do. In other words, not very well. Uh, I was serious about being somebody. I wasn't serious about working on being somebody yet. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to be a famous. Okay, but you got to start putting the work in now, kid. No, 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 no. They're just going to discover me because I'm. Yeah, no, that's not how it works. Um, my best friend in college that I hadn't seen in 35 years died in 2020 in his recliner, and I thought he was going to outlive me by 20 years. I was the one most people thought was going to die. The way I lived, the things I did, um, and it's awakening when you find out further just how tenuous the thread that holds us on this side of forever is. I mean, I've been shot, I've been stabbed, I'm supposed to have been dead 3 times in the last 10 years from medical things. A couple of times within 12 hours. They said, if you'd waited 12 hours, you wouldn't have made it. Yeah, yeah, whatever. Oh, I thought you'd think that. Here's a picture of what we took out of you. That kind of stuff. And yet I'm the one still kicking. Um, and people love to think, well, it's because I have a special purpose. No more special than you, Tom. No more special than anybody that might listen to this. It's not about the presidents, the kings, the movie stars, the rock stars. It's about every human being that says, this day I will be the best that I can be at whatever I find to do. Those are the giants. And there are trash haulers. There are, people that run what we call blue rooms, porta potties.
That was that they call 'em?
We call them blue rooms, or a word I won't say on your show. Um, the obvious. But there was a young man and his wife in Wynnewood, Oklahoma. He had been a refinery hand, made good money, got hurt. Company dropped him, and he got a little settlement, not much, but he couldn't go back into that because his body could not take some of the things that it was going to be subject to, the chemicals. Just couldn't do it. It'd kill him. But instead of giving up, instead of going on welfare or whatever, he took that little settlement and got a loan, got himself a pumper truck that was worn out, barely working, and 6, count them, 6 pooper houses. Now, why would he do that? Well, everybody's got a poop, and they do a lot of turnarounds at that refinery. And the company that they'd had out of another city never did do the job right. I mean, it was nasty. They wouldn't come clean them the way they were supposed to, the times they were supposed to. You got 1,600 guys using the bathroom in those things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And he walked up to the very guy that turned him loose after he got hurt. And the guy thought he wanted to fight. And he told me, he goes, I did for a minute, And then I thought, no, the best revenge is to get money off of you, you son of a bitch.
Got him.
So he walked up and he said, you got a turnaround coming up. And he goes, yeah. And he goes, I want a piece of it. Doing what? Told him. And he goes, we're going to need 120. And he goes, I'll provide six in the worst unit you got, which was a crude unit. And he goes, well, what good's that going to do? He says, because when I do a good job for you on that, I'll make enough money to buy 25 more and then 100 more. I met him on his third year. Him and his young wife, she was pretty. He was, you know, handsome for a young guy. You couldn't tell that his health had been affected that bad. And they ran a pooper house company and they were proud of it and they did phenomenal work and they took excellent care of us. He's a giant.
Yeah,
The plant manager at the time, don't even remember his name.
that's an awesome story. Man.
What was your
Yeah.
next question? Or are you done?
Uh, Well, I could probably go for like another half hour if you're good for that.
Okay. All right.
Uh,
I guess I got to give up on
um,
cigars. This isn't working.
uh-oh.
That's all right.
Do you have any whiskey? No.
Never did get into drinking. Never was a matter of righteousness. I just, when I was a kid, remember I was homeless and then I started doing a man's job, making a man's wages. And Chevelles and big block Monte Carlos were cheap because they were gas guzzlers. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is the life. Dr. Pepper was a dime and Coors was 60 cents a can. I didn't like the taste of Coors, loved Dr. Pepper. I could do the math. So I just never got into drinking because I was buying Offenhauser dual quads, Mickey Thompson slicks, Krager SS mags with the knockoffs. Anyway, you get the picture.
No, that's definitely the best option. I kind of joke about it. I'm not a big believer in it either. I try to have as little as I can. I just don't feel good afterwards. But yeah. Um,
It wasn't because I was better than the drinkers. I was going to use my money for something different.
well, a lot more fun things to do too. I mean, you can drive a Chevelle. You only get to drink the whiskey once. So.
Yeah, and everybody was impressed with my Chevelle. I've been drunk twice in my life, and nobody was impressed.
That's funny. Yeah, I always loved Chevelle's. That was my friend's growing up his favorite car of all time. And when you see him, you're like, it's a pretty sweet looking car. But
I was fortunate enough, I worked hard, but of course, this is back in the 70s and 80s. But I had five '69 Chevelle SS's, uh, an El Camino '69 El Camino SS, a big block '72 Monte Carlo. Yeah,
those some nice cars.
yeah, they were.
Do you still
And
hold on to any of them or
no,
no?
no, no. Wrecked a couple, and the rest of them I sold. I always made money off of them, but no, I never kept any of those. And I was about to say, I could do the old man. If I still had that, I'd be a millionaire. I had a Malibu SS, and I know some are going to say they never made one. Shut up, shut up. Yes, they did. Back in the '60s, you could still get the Copo sheet,
Oh,
and you could say, "I want a Malibu, I want a big block, I want the SS package, I want this and this and this." And if you were good enough friends with the right dealer and had the money, you could get a Malibu SS, and I had one. Had map light in the rearview mirror, had the rear window defogger, had the factory 8-track, had the L78, M22 Rock Crusher 4-speed, deluxe red interior, power windows. If I still had that in the condition I had it back then, it's about $150,000 car.
wow, man.
Oh well, you know,
Yeah, yeah. At least you had it. Got to experience it.
that's exactly it. So what's the next question?
Um, let me see. Well, I feel like we kind of answered the one I was going to ask next, which was, um, well, so like many people, especially I think young guys who want to excel at something, we want to be good at something, but I think there's always that doubt of, am I actually going to get there and is it worth all the pain or should I be doing something else? And I think that especially hits a lot of us, especially, well, I would say after college because we're all like trying to figure things out, like what do we go into? What do we do? And at least for me, I always was kind of like hopping around to this thing and that thing, thinking I was committing. And then, and honestly, one of the guys I follow, his name's Alex Hormozy. He's like a young businessman. And he is like, look, you remember that guy that got rich off of day trading and he had three companies and he was hustling this and hustling that? Yeah, I don't remember him either, so stick to the one thing. And so to me, I was like, ooh, that hit pretty hard. Like I need to stay committed. So I was just kind of curious, like, what do you find to be the best way to stay committed in the long term and kind of build that discipline of not giving up?
Two different things you said there.
Okay.
All right. The long term discipline of not giving up. That's the key. Now, if I remember reading it right, 30 minutes before we got together, um, how do you know and how do you fight the tendency that, okay, I work on this skill set, but what if it's a dead end? Am I right?
Yeah.
I put all this into this skill set and then crap, I don't want to do this, or crap, that doesn't make me any money, or crap, I don't even like this anymore, blah, blah. Um, that's going to happen, period. But your general direction, my general direction was so vague and yet so pinpoint.
Mm,
I wanted to be a good man because I wasn't. Well, that's vague as hell. It's a hell of a lot more pinpoint than you think.
mm.
How you get there? Well, remember I told you about keeping my word.
Yep.
Until I was 25, my word was absolutely worthless. That was the key. That was the starting point. That was the first foot in the blocks. Let's say we're running a race, right? That's the first foot. The second foot is commitment to the long.
Mm,
You got those two, your word's good, and you're committed to the long haul overall, you're off to the races.
mm.
All right. The skill sets, all I ever wanted to do when I was young, the dinging you're hearing is me starting
Oh, it's not
the
coming through too
truck
bad.
thing. Okay. Just starting the truck thing just enough so that it goes another 10 minutes and I can utilize the microphone up here. It's better than the one on the phone. But all I ever wanted to do was tell people about Jesus. With your mouth? Yeah, with my mouth. Go through what I went through and see if your mouth isn't a little bit affected. Um, maybe not. Maybe you're a better person than me. I'm good with that. But so I went to school, got a degree in Bible, blah, 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 blah. Went to seminary, did all of that. And then, like I said, after 12 years of being in that, first 4 years, I had all kinds of other jobs trying to, earn a living for a wife and two kids. What do you do with yourself when all you've ever been, all you ever wanted to be was a preacher, and now you can't be that anymore? That's why I sat down and did an honest skills assessment, and nobody told me. That's another thing. God, God worked it out. I didn't hear any voices. There were no feathers of angels' wings or anything, but I know that He was finally going, "Hey, knucklehead, you bring more to the table than you think.
Uh-huh.
Now think." And so I did. I sat down with a pen and a paper. Laptops didn't exist back in 1997. Maybe they did. I couldn't afford one. Um, what do you do? I preach. No, you don't. Scratch it out. Literally, I can remember it. I can see it. What do you do? Public speaking. Okay, now we're off to the races. Public speaking. What do you do? Well, I write for the bulletin every once in a while. Okay, you're right, because I've seen some of your stuff. It's pretty good, the late stuff you're doing. What else do you do? And all of a sudden, guess what? Project management, leadership, week by week by week, anywhere from 30 to 600 people, depending on where I was. I was leading what was going on and all that kind of stuff. What else do you do? And I just started going down through all of this. Project management, children's Bible hour and VBS and blah, blah, blah. It was my job to make sure it all came together and we went off that edge. So that brought me to the next arena, one that I'd never thought of, one that I had no clue who was there, who I needed to talk to, how to go about it. That's why I just barged into that ad agency and said, "You need my help." Not the best I need a job line ever done. But I think I blow dried his hair at just the right moment. God worked it out where he was about to lose one of his favorite clients. And so it worked. I began acquiring skills in that arena because I kind of liked it. I like the creative side of things. So I started hanging out with the video editor and the photographer. I mean, he had a Hasselblad and a Mamiya and the expensive 5-inch cameras. It was back in the day of film still. Um, and just, what can I help with? I didn't have the money or wasn't going to spend the money to take a photography course, but I actually got paid to learn because he would take me out on shoots and the videographer would take me out on shoots. And then I'd help in the editing suite. Didn't make any money doing that until they found out that I had a radio voice, and all of a sudden I'm doing voiceovers for stuff that you've seen and heard, national ads and some television shows and stuff that I never would have thought of that.
Hmm.
But it led to other skills that I wanted to work on, acquire, i.e., sound editing, video editing, blah, 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 blah. Was I ever going to be in the movie industry? No, didn't want to be. Have I used it in my own business in marketing and advertising and training, building training modules and stuff? Yes. Here's another thing. My current wonderful wife, when I met her, she was going through her master's, continuing adult education with an emphasis on, what was it? Oh, instructional design. Okay. I didn't have a clue what that was, but I was
Yeah.
going to help her succeed.
Yeah.
So, I would read all these books that she was supposed to read, and she'd say, "Well, tell me tell me what it says here," and I would synopsize everything and underline the things I thought were important, and then she'd go to class, and that's exactly what the professor would say. You're going to need to remember this part especially well. It's exactly what I'd underlined or whatever. The long and short of it is, I wound up getting my master's in continuing adult education with an emphasis in instructional design without paying for it. See, we as a people have fooled ourselves. If I get the sheepskin, if I get the piece of paper, if I get that little rolled up scroll called a diploma, I've done something. No. What did you get out of it? See, I wasn't going to walk up across the line and get my degree. I was going to help her succeed, but it was something I was interested in. And so I was hungry and I was soaking up everything I was reading and everything that, she would uh, bring and say, to a date or whatever and say, sorry, but I've got to work on this instructional design thing using Blackboard, which was the latest, greatest thing back in those days. And I say, no, that's cool. Here, you can have the hot dog. How do we do this?
Yeah.
I got to go through an entire master's program without paying for it. Skill set? Masco Coatings, 5 years later. Hey, do you know how to do blah, 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 blah? Absolutely, I do. I'd added a skill set. You never know when it's going to come into play. But if you give it
Yeah.
your all, whether it's for a month or 2 years or whatever it is, all right? Some people go through dentistry school or doctor school or nursing school or accounting or law, and they wind up in a job they absolutely hate and they stay in it for 30 years. That's on them. But I've already put so much money into this law degree and blah, blah, blah. That's fine. But guess what you can do? You can not be a lawyer and put all the skills that you learned. What did you learn? Attention to detail, noticing things about people, situation, documents, history that most people don't. If you're going to be a good lawyer, you got to learn all that stuff. How do you create and craft an argument that is both right and convincing? Storytelling.
Mm. Yeah.
Have, have your facts ready, have your documents right, know your audience, whether it be a jury or a whatever, an appellate judge or whatever it is. How do you do that? You research them, you study them a little bit. While people are watching you, watch them. This one gets bored easy. He's distracted. He's doing that. So I'm going to have to come up with bullet points. Bing, 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 bing. So he goes, okay, I get it. This one is just, I love everybody. So you have to get to their heart. And this one is, I think he's guilty. I don't give a damn what you say. I'm going to put the sucker in the electric chair. I hate his guts. Okay, don't worry about what he needs at the moment, but you got to know your audience,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you can transfer that to any business. You can transfer that to any other field and be a consultant. Oh, but I could make partner and make $1 million a year in about 7 years. And you're going to be bald because you're going to be pulling your hair out because you absolutely hate the law.
Yeah.
Or you can take the skill sets and you only make 250, $300,000 a year as a consultant, but you can't wait to get up every day because your clients go, okay, what did we miss on this? Well, I don't know that you missed anything, but what I noticed yesterday was that when Bob does this, he gets electrocuted. So maybe Bob ought not do that anymore. That's pretty good. Here's another check. Now I'm oversimplifying, but I'm serious.
That's
Sometimes
good.
it's pointing out the obvious to people that are so close to it day in and day out that they can't see it. Come in the outside. You there?
Yep. Still here.
Oh, you come at it from the outside, which is exactly what I did when I walked into that ad agency. I'm not a boater. I'm not a water puppy. There are sharks in there, and I don't like sharks, so I don't do that. It's never been a passion of mine, but it has a motor, it has leather seats, and it can go fast. Okay, I can relate to that.
Yep.
I came at it from an outsider's viewpoint. I took a look at all the copy that he'd done. Does more, costs less, better product, our materials are blah, 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 made in America. They'd heard that so many times. So what I did was I actually sat down and looked at the picture of the boat and I said, what would it feel like to just
Do you remember what you said?
don't settle for fast, reach for ebb tide.
Ooh,
Boom, baby,
that's
nailed it,
great. Yeah.
and just wrote a bunch of copy from there. Don't settle for because there were other boats that were just as fast, but an ebb tide boat, they don't use a chopper. They may not even be in business anymore. That was 25 years ago, but they didn't use chopper guns. They hand laid everything. That's why they were a little more expensive.
Oh,
So you didn't have to worry about air gaps and stuff. It was the same strength all the way, every inch, vertical, lateral, depth wise, whatever. Blah blah blah. All right. Don't settle for fast. Reach for ebb tide.
that's really good.
And he's like, how'd you do that? I don't know. I didn't tell him I hate boats.
That's
By
hilarious.
the way, the owner of Ebb Tide Boats and I had something in common, although he was rich and I wasn't at the time. Um, they actually sent me there after that success and a couple of others by God's grace. They sent me there to spend 2 days going through the plant and meeting the owner so that I'd have even more insight. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The plant was a plant. It was clean. It was nice. Blah, blah, blah. You're making boats. I don't care. And the owner goes, do you have to get home right now? It was like 4 hour trip. And I said, no. He goes, come with me. And we went out to his farm. And here were these huge 60 by 100 or something buildings, multiple. And I thought, I really don't need to go into a chicken house. Okay. I'm not impressed with that. That wasn't no chicken house, Tom. He pushed a button and this great big roll door goes up. The lights come on and stacked just like this, just like in the movies, just like in Iron Man, were Porsche after Porsche after Porsche after Porsche, Porsche engines, racing engines, blah, 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 blah.
Wow.
He collected Porsche. Yeah. And I spent about 3 hours in there with him. Didn't make a dime extra, but I enjoyed it and I learned a lot. See, that's another thing. Every day, learn something, either something not to do or something to do or something to reach for again because it was enjoyable and didn't cost a dime to do the first time.
Mm. I like that last suggestion.
So,
Yeah.
got time for one more, maybe.
Um, see.
There were a couple pretty heavy ones there. Go ahead and hit it.
Well, I wonder if this one might be the heaviest hitting one, the last one I had.
All right, go.
Um, so how does someone who struggles with self-hatred overcome that harmful bias against themselves? The reason I ask is I've definitely struggled with this a long time, and I know a lot of friends who have, so.
No, I get it. You didn't have to explain. I get it. From April 15th, 1960 to 8:06 p.m., August 17th, 1967. I was the cockiest little son of a bitch you ever saw in your life.
Mm.
I was a normal kid that had a beautiful, wonderful mother that beat the tar out of me. I've told you that.
Mhm.
She and that grandma of mine were so mean to me. In other words, they didn't let me get away with nothing. She died right in front of me of a brain aneurysm when I was 7 years old. And this, I love you, you're wonderful. Come here, I'm going to beat your ass, you little shit. That world ended. Spent the next year in limbo. Um, got to spend a lot more time with my dad. He always had to work in another state because we were sick, me and mom, and we were blue collar poor. So dad would work in a state that made a ton of money and live in a hellhole. So we got to live in a nice house and have our bills paid. Now I was living with my dad, which I thought was the coolest thing in the world. And then because of his own needs and everything, he got married. From that very night, I mean, she hooked him, reeled him in, and then I got to live with the real one. I got called every name under the sun, and
Mm.
some she even invented. Told how worthless I was, how much she hated me. She was going to kill me, blah, blah, blah. I was trying to break up her and dad, and she was going to kill me. And my mom was nothing but a whore, and da 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 da. I never believed it, but the crushing weight of it all day, every day, 7 days a week for 5 years made an impact. And then when I left home at 13, because it was either that or kill her, and I'm not joking, Nobody cares if you're white, brown, black, or green. When you're a homeless kid, it's get out of here. Go on. Ain't got time for you. So I went from being a much loved, normal, ornery, cocky, precocious kid to 5 years of that. And now I'm just an outcast that nobody wants around. And I lived with self doubt and self loathing in some ways because I made some mistakes that were horrific. How does one get past that? Hmm. You will never earn enough money to. You will never marry a pretty enough girl to. You will never drive a fancy enough car or motorcycle to. You will never live in a nice enough neighborhood to. So how do you do it? What God helped me do was to decide, as I've said before, I will be a man. Don't know how yet, but I will be a man and I will be a good man because I've been a bad one. That came natural. And then you work all day, every chance you get. Every time you fall, you get back up, get the rocks out of your knees, whatever out of the palms of your hands that you fell down on. Okay, that ain't the way you do it, but I'm going to be a good man. Make that the long-term determining factor, or good woman if you're a woman. I'm talking about self-hatred. It shows up in a lot of ways. I don't deserve this. I don't. Of course we don't. I'll just speak for myself. I deserved death when I was a kid. I did some horrific things when I was a kid. Well, you were just a homeless kid. Yeah, I was, but I knew better. I have two right here. I'm sitting in one and the other one's there, and I've got five more. So I've got seven beautiful rigs, four show cars, uh, three motorcycles. One's a classic that is museum grade because I bought it off a museum in Houston. The other one is a one of a kind custom that they actually did a television show about that very bike. Um, I got a nice place, a great wife, everything's paid for. I got a collection of knives that would be the envy of 90% of the men in the world. I've got old milsurp guns that are some of the best in the world. There's a lot of museums that would love to have them. Blah, 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 blah. What am I getting at? Do I deserve any of it? No. Did I earn the money that paid for it? You bet your ass. I still deserve death. But what he has given me every single day is his loving face looking back at my face. The sun was in it and I couldn't see you at all. So I moved. And when you going to stop talking and just look me in the eye and remember I love you? Yeah, but I know what you did. Trust me, I was there. I know. But look me in the eye. I love you. And the sooner you get that through your head and into your heart, the more powerful you will be, the less trouble you'll be to me, and the more that you will actually become what you've always desired to be. Oh, oh, that's how it works. Yeah, that's how it works. Do you finally get it? You bet. And then the very next day I do something, I'm like, shit, oh, I don't deserve it. And he's like, oh, look me in the eye.
We talked about this.
Yeah, we did again and again. Self-hatred is safe. That's why so many of us have done it. You know where you stand. Why does she stay in that abusive relationship? Why does he stay in that job that isn't worth a damn? Why? Because at least I know exactly what to expect every morning.
Yep.
And I know what's going to be looking me back in the eye every night when I look in the mirror, even if I loathe it, even if I hate it, it's safe. Stop being safe. Start living. But I might make a mistake. Oh, yeah, you're gonna make a mistake. Every day you're gonna make a mistake. But start living. That's what he built us for.
Mhm.
I have come that you might have what? What did he say?
Life and life in abundance.
Whoa, what? I've come that you who? No, not that nasty chocolate drink. Who? The 12 apostles. Okay, nice start, but no, who? People in the first century. Boy, you're a slow one to warm up. And who else? Um, oh, my Aunt Matilda. She was a saint. Yeah, no, she wasn't really, but I'm not going to tell you. Just have to wait until you find out up there. Who? Me? Yeah, you. I have come that Chip might have life, that Tom might have life, that Raul, Ramon, Shamika, whoever might have life. Oh, and in case you missed it, have it abundantly. Well, that means I'm going to get rich and my wife's going to be skinny and pretty and no, that's not what it means. What does it mean? For me, what it means is when I look back on what I've been, where I've been, and what I've done, I cannot believe how blessed I am to be who I am, whose I am, and where I am.
Mm.
So you never get mad anymore? Oh, I get pissed. I get so pissed. I hate this world. And don't like me some days. And I'm handsome. How could you not like me? No, that's me talking to me. That's not me talking to you, Tom.
No, I got it.
That's what the enemy wants us to do, is to hate ourselves. If he can't accomplish that, he wants us to hate other people.
Mm.
That's why the Lord came and he said, oh, I got somebody walking in my backyard. Hope they're enjoying it. Um, Looking through the gate there. Give your life to the King. Everything else is short, faltering, halting steps, and you trip and fall, and you finally wear out, and you finally die. I tried that route. I tried success. I tried pretty women. I tried making money and was good at all of it. Not because I'm handsome, it's because I learned a long time ago that most good looking girls stay at home at night because most guys are scared of them. I wasn't scared.
Mm.
Hey, let's go get, ice cream cone. Hey, let's go to a movie, whatever, blah, blah, blah. They were like, okay. He died for you. And when he rose again by the power that God, his father, gave him, he didn't come back and say, all right, I'm sick of all of you. I'm done. I'm wiping you out. It says later in the Bible, towards the end, it says, for God is not willing. It's actually when it says, God is not slow concerning his promises, as some people count slowness, but is long suffering towards us all, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to eternal life. And what that was in answer to a question that I have asked recently. Let me just be honest. Recently, why the hell are some of these people still allowed? And why don't you just wipe, this out or that out or whatever? And he's like, oh, look who's gotten so wise. You're so old and know so much. Maybe I need to let you run the world. No, not so much. Why is it still going even as dark as it is, Tom? Because there's one more chance that one more person is going to find out just how unbelievably awesome it is to lay their burden down, their self hatred, their self love, all of the phony things that we chase, their success, and say, I'm tired. I don't. I'm not comfortable being in front of you because you're holy and I'm not, but you promised that you love me. Will you forgive me? Will you save me? Oh, we finally got to this point, he says. Absolutely. Come on. Well, I don't believe that's the way it works. Well, let me put it to you this way. That's why he told the story. Facts tell, stories sell. The beauty is marrying the two of them, Tom, where your story sells the facts and the truth.
Mm.
Last story, and I got to go. A certain man had two sons. The younger one came to him one day and said, I'm sick of this. I don't want to be on the farm anymore. I know we got a lot of money. I know I'm going to make something off of this. I got an inheritance coming. It's not as much as my older brother, but it's enough. I want my part now. Okay, the father says. Okay. So I don't know if he liquidated some camels, sheep, and donkeys or what, but he gave the kid the cash equivalent to his part of the inheritance. He was gone. And after he'd gone through all that money, all those drinking buddies, all of those, I love your money. I mean, love you, honeys. And he wound up flat broke. And he was too far away from home to just walk home. He was too proud and too ashamed to do it. So he thought, well, uh, I gave you money last year. Yeah, but man, I'm kind of tapped out right now. No, I can't loan you nothing, bud. Sorry. Hey, can you cook me? Can you at least cook me dinner, honey? I mean, I paid for your nursing school. I paid for this. No, baby, I got me a new man. You need to get your ass on out of here. And he wound up slopping pigs for a farmer that didn't care if he starved or not. And the Bible says that he came to himself. See, he didn't come to God, he came to himself. In other words, he pulled his head out of his butt.
Mhm.
Finally. And he said, wait a minute. My father's servants, his servants, have enough food that they got plenty left over. And here I am starving to death, wanting to eat the husks that I'm feeding these nasty pigs. All right, I finally reached the bottom of the barrel. So here's what I'm going to do. Of course, he had to practice it. We always have to practice it. All right. We have to have some dignity when we go back crawling on our hands and knees. So he practiced it. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, Father, I'm not worthy to be your son. I know that. I know that game is over with. That ship has sailed. But at least take me on as one of your servants so that I don't starve to death. Yeah, I think that sounds pretty good. And then he started back. And the Bible says, how long was he gone? I don't know. Long enough that his older brother was quite content with not thinking about him anymore. But the Bible says that while he was still a long way off, his father saw him. Now, how the hell did he see him a long way off, Tom?
Must be at a pretty high place looking for him.
Exactly. Looking for him every day. And while he was still a long way off, his father ran to him until he got close enough to smell the pig slop and the sweat and all that kind of stuff and saw how nasty he was. He said, oh, you little shit, get out of here, you nasty thing. You know what the Bible says?
He embraced him.
He hugged him. And the boy practiced, he started his speech. Father, I've sinned against you and against heaven, and I'm not worthy to be your son. At least let me be one of your servants. And he didn't even listen to his speech. Now, how hurtful is that? Didn't listen to his speech, but turned over his shoulder, and I'll guarantee he didn't turn loose of him the whole time. How much, how much energy, how much strength, how much longing is there for the lonely to be touched? It means the world. And he's hugging him. And he looks back over his shoulder. And I'll guarantee you the servants were running after him like, oh, I don't know what's coming up, but I better be ready to do whatever he says. And he goes, quick, quick, go get a robe and some shoes and the best ring and put it on his finger. For this son of mine was dead and he's alive. He was lost, but now he's found. There's not a person listening to this show, not a single woman, no matter what they've been, no matter where they've been, no matter how much God given tan they do or do not have, that He ain't looking for you. And if you'll just come up the road, He will run and meet you where you wind up. And He'll say the same damn thing to you. Because I've been as dark and as vicious and as hate filled and as gutless as any person ever dreamed of. And I am a blood washed, adopted prince and warrior of heaven, full blown.
That was,
That's the best thing I know about self hatred.
well, I think that was the best answer I've ever heard. So, well, I don't want to keep you too long, but it was a real pleasure to have you on again today, Chip.
It is always my honor. And I always want to be, slick and polished like Mike Rowe and the rest of them. And I just wind up being me. But that's just what I'm going to be.
I really like that actually. I like those shows where it just looks like two people talking and just thinking and
Yeah.
sharing what they got, and then I think those do the best.
Joe Rogan pulls it off. Maybe we can too.
It's kind of what I'm thinking. I mean, he's number one, and he just has a red drape behind the guy and takes a picture of him with a not
Yeah.
great camera and has a lot of junk on his desk and says, "So what you been up to recently?"
Yeah. Yeah. The coolest thing about his set is the neon sign.
Yeah,
That's pretty slick.
I do like that sign. Yeah.
It's going to break my heart if I find out that that's AI.
I don't think Joe Rogan plays an AI very much.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Well, can we end it this way? You
Yeah.
ready?
Hmm.
Lord, thank you for your grace. Thank you for Tom and his heart. Thank you for the character that's already there and the hunger, the ganas that I know he has to be a good man. Now he says, a good American and everything, and that's true. But whether this country lasts as it is or morphs into something else, it's going to need men like him. Thank you for making him what he is now. I know that you're going to bring him to completion. I pray with everybody that happens to listen to this that they find value in it and that I've spoken the truth about you, even as rough as I am. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for the blessings that you give us, no matter what man tries to take from us. And no matter what happens on November 5th, 6th, and the rest of that time, those that surrender to you have things that last forever that cannot be touched, cannot be stolen, and cannot be diminished. And for that, I'm thankful. In Christ's name that makes it possible. Amen.
Amen.
Fair enough.
Thank you, Chip.
No, you didn't even close your eyes when you prayed. No, I don't very often, but I mean every word I say.
Eyes closed is just a formality.
It is. All right, my friend, take care of yourself.
Yeah, you too. Have a great rest of your day and looking forward to chatting with you again soon.
I would look forward to it. Now I'm going to go smoke a cigar and try and get the whole thing done.
Sounds good. Sorry I gave you a 2 hour delay on that.
Nope, that's fine. Take care.
See ya.